Charlotte. The secret lies with Charlotte.
Oh, okay.
And that was it.
Yeah.
What a great show.
But he was named Benjamin Franklin Gates.
I see. And he had Benjamin Franklin's glasses.
Yes.
I see.
Oh, I thought that was Hiram Smith's.
Whoa.
Human
What is that off of?
Huh?
There's another book that has like, I think it's a lost symbol, but Dan Brown has something about
Hiram Smith's.
Mormon things. Yeah.
Have you seen Hiram Smith's sunglasses?
Are they awesome?
They looked exactly like the sunglasses from National Treasure.
That's awesome.
He was rocking style before it became style.
Was he though?
I don't know.
Well, that's the weirdest looking thing I've ever seen in my entire life. That's like retro futuristic. That's like what the what do they call steampunk people wear?
Yeah. Jake, have you seen his glasses?
Riding around on their giant bicycles.
Yeah, pretty cool. Look, there's
What are
a
those
picture of
giant
him.
bicycles called?
Look, this is what he looked like.
Okay.
The steampunk bicycles.
Yeah, what are those called?
Unicycles?
I have no idea.
I'm just kidding.
I'm not a steampunky.
Is that what they're called? Steam monkeys?
That's what I call it.
I see.
Now, Danny, you might be saying, well, like...
It's called a penny farthing.
penny
A
farthing.
penny farthing.
Isn't that the big wheel and then the little wheel?
Yep. It's just a little chain.
Now, I showed you a picture of the glasses, but that was the style today. That's Andrew Jackson with the same glasses.
Oh, bless Andrew Jackson. He just looks like the grumpiest. I'm gonna take someone out.
Someone tried shooting him, achieved pulling the trigger, it misfired, and then Andrew Jackson beat him to death with his cane.
I'm Andrew Jackson. Did he have like a giant ball of cheese at his like inauguration that went bad, and a swearing parrot?
He did have a swearing parrot.
I think that all of the presidents in one way or another are just goofy.
Yes, I agree.
I'm already really proud of this character.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Should we get going? Have we done enough?
Have we done?
Well, I mean, we haven't really talked about it a whole lot, but
We never do.
Did Benjamin Franklin have teeth?
Welcome to the Twaddling Along Podcast. We're back. Yay.
Hey.
where we
I'm
going?
here, and I'm Dan McBride. And here with me are my co-hosts and brothers, Joshua
I'm there.
and Jacob.
I'm drawing.
Whoa.
Dang, that was deep.
We're back, people. It feels longer than it really has been, and I don't know why. But
The
it has
reason
only
is-
been like 2 weeks.
I say
know.
it probably doesn't feel that long for them, but for us, it has been quite
forever.
a while.
That's because I went out of town. Remember, we had to record
That's
early.
Right. Why is it that you get to go out of town so much and I don't?
I don't have children.
I see. Well,
That's not a choice.
well, then I'll give it to you.
Heartbreak.
Hey!
Jeez, Joshua.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
He asked.
Bring me down. What are we talking about this week? Heartbreak and agony and
What are we
pain.
talking about? The joys
Joys and pains.
and everything.
Suffering.
Where vacations no longer become vacations, they
Not
become
even a
trips.
vacation. How was your vacation, Josh?
It was so nice.
Yeah, because you went up to Idaho.
Yep, I was up in the middle of Idaho. Literally, if you put a dot in the middle of Idaho, that's where I was.
Island Park. Is that where it was?
No.
Oh,
It was a place called Stanley, Idaho.
I see.
For all my friends in Stanley, they're a bunch of hippies left over from like 1960.
Whenever I hear the name Stanley, it reminds me of the Cars movie.
Stanley.
Stanley, the one who founded Radiator Springs
He found a spring.
and who was married to that one thing.
Model T.
The one thing.
Well, are cars them? Are they gendered? I don't know.
I mean,
This gets into a very political topic that we don't want to address.
Well, let me tell you. So, in the Cars, there's a bunch of car like movie conspiracies that I absolutely love.
Like
Some
that
of
the
them get,
cars
like-
took over from humans.
Yeah, well, not only that, but just like the implications by what you see. Like the cars have religion because you see the car pope,
That's true.
which means that there's got to be like car apostles. There's car profits. I mean, we're getting like some pretty deep stuff here.
Hey, those twins flashed their lights at the very beginning
They
at him.
did.
I mean,
Did you not see Jay Leno's freaking chin?
It was awesome.
And then the Hummer.
Get it back.
That was a good accent, Joshua.
Thank you.
That was really good. But that's not what we're talking about
Vienna,
today.
Austria.
Is it? He's Austrian, but I don't think he's Vienna.
Is he not?
I've heard that like certain German people say like his German sounds like an uneducated like farmer. So it's like, hey, how y'all doing?
We love you, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You know, I
I almost said Schwarzen German because that's what it was in Fairly
Yep.
Odd Parents.
Was it really?
Fairly Odd Parents, yeah.
It was a swear word?
No, it was Schwarzen German is what they would say his last
Schwarz
name.
German.
That's because they can't say the last part of his name. He was born in Thal, Austria.
Which is where?
He was born where?
He was born in
born-
Thal. German pronunciation, Thal.
Thal.
In Styria.
What's the population of Thal?
2,240.
Okay, so small town backwoods hig.
Yep.
Who grew up to be a very large and scary man who could still kill us, Danny.
Well,
Who kills us? Who kills robots for a living?
hey, you guys want to know what we're talking about today? Because it's not the back lore of the Cars movie, and it's not the former governor of California, Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
What am I drawing? Danny?
Who his son-in-law is Chris Pratt.
That's true. What are you drawing, Jake? Let's see.
Oh my
Oh,
god!
that is
I
pretty
just-
darn good.
Just covered it up.
Oh, I like that. That is actually excellent. We are talking about an esteemed gentleman in American history.
Would you consider him a gentleman?
I actually would, and I'll explain why.
Interesting.
Because it's one of those ones where it's easy to put the morals of today on the morals of yesterday. And so we have to be kind of careful with a bunch of different things. He had a lot of growth in his life.
I say he's one of my heroes because he did
Everything.
Everything.
And I will say this: I despise people who put today's views on yesteryear's.
He is a self-made man.
Self-made.
A true American, born in America. It's Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin, welcome.
So Benjamin Franklin is such a huge topic that I tried to actually split it into a couple things. So I've split Benjamin Franklin into his parts. One being the scientist.
Split him into his parts. He
there's
has
his
a
hand.
sign. There's his foot running
Let's
around.
talk about his foot. Benjamin Franklin's foot.
Let's talk about his elbow.
His different kind of aspects about his character.
Gotcha.
So we're going to talk a little bit about Benjamin the diplomat, Benjamin the scientist, Benjamin the entrepreneur, and then we're going to talk a little bit about his relationships, the people that he liked, the people he didn't like, and then we're gonna kind of go into kind of his contradictions and weaknesses. And so I'm going to do a little bit of we're just going to say a note at the beginning of this episode. We do love Benjamin Franklin.
We do.
But Benjamin Franklin was a flawed individual.
Just like us.
And we are not going to shy away from some of the more seedy aspects of his life. We're not going to get into like the PG-13 area.
I'm covering my ears.
But we are definitely going to actually talk about, his extramarital affairs, his illegitimate children,
All of them.
him being a slave owner. We're going to talk about it all.
Yep.
So
I think it's very important to say that, our founding fathers were the ones that created the country that we're in. And yes, they were very flawed. And today we would throw them in prison.
terribly imperfect people.
But they did provide the foundation on where we live today. So I'm grateful for them.
And none more than Benjamin Franklin. Really,
Literally.
Benjamin Franklin was involved in so many different aspects of what would become the United States, from the way that we organize our postal service, to the way that we do trading, to our, even like the from our very beginnings, the relationships we had with different countries. It's all kind of due to Benjamin Franklin. So let's start from the very beginning. Benjamin Franklin was born in 1706 in Boston.
He's a Bostonian.
He is a Bostonian, and it makes me giggle a little
Does
bit.
he have a Boston accent?
That's what I was going to say. I think it would be funny if Benjamin Franklin, like everybody pictures him talking like this, Benjamin Franklin. But if he was more like a Boston accent,
Hey, you piece of...
that's a good Boston accent.
Thank you.
He was born into a candle maker's family. So his father was a candle maker, had immigrated over from England. So a lot of Benjamin Franklin's uncles and aunts on his father's side were actually still in England at the time, but his father had immigrated over. He was the 15th of 17 children. Wow. The
Moses.
15th of 17
And they said people from Utah were bad.
children. I mean, come on. Now, obviously not all of them, outlived infancy, but 15 is ridiculous. At the ripe old age of 10, he stopped going to school. He was done with school.
Dang.
Didn't have anything to do with it after the age of 10, which is interesting because later in life, he was known as Dr. Benjamin Franklin. As a matter of fact, if you read all of the old dispatches and all of the old news from the time, that's what he's most known for. He's actually Dr. Benjamin Franklin in everything.
Yeah, and he basically laid the foundation for American education.
He did. I mean, the University of Pennsylvania was started by Benjamin Franklin.
Yep.
And we'll get into that a little bit. He was first apprenticed to his brother James's printing press in Boston.
And this is one of my favorite time of Benjamin Franklin because you get his personality that comes out.
Yes. What are some of his pen names you guys know?
Mr. Silence Dogood, which is actually Mrs. Silence Dogood.
What?
Okay, that's the only one I know.
He used pen names almost nonstop. So Silence Dogood is his most famous one, but Poor Richard.
Poor Richard.
As in Poor Richard's Almanac. That was his other one, Richard Saunders. He used that a lot. He used Americanus. He used, let's see, there was one that I saw that was super hilarious. Mrs. Silence Dogood.
Mm-hmm.
And he was prolific. From a very, very, very early age, he was a very prolific writer.
He was turning heads with the writings of Mrs. Silence Dogood when he was 15, 16 years old.
He really was. And he was very well read. Because he was in a print shop and because the print shop was mostly doing a lot of recreations of books that were coming over from England, he read, just everything. He's considered kind of the archetype of what a polymath is. You guys ever heard that term, polymath?
No.
Jake?
I have no idea what a polymath
A
is.
polymath is a person with wide-ranging knowledge across many different subjects who can apply this knowledge to solve complex problems. And
That's very true.
You see it a lot in Benjamin Franklin's writing. Benjamin Franklin, with the amount of knowledge that he had, he kind of was just an all-around master of all trades. He wasn't even a jack of all trades. He really was just good at everything he did.
Yep.
He left and ran away from his brother's printing shop at the age of 17.
And
Was that because of a disagreement?
It was.
And I'll point out English law at the time, if you ran away from apprenticeship, you were then a wanted fugitive.
You were, yes.
And so Benjamin Franklin started his life of crime at the ripe old age of 17.
Benjamin Franklin. It's part of the reason that he settled in Pennsylvania. Because in Pennsylvania, he wanted to have a new life and he broke away. And part of the reason that he broke away is that they argued all the time. And they argued mostly because Benjamin Franklin thought that he could do a better job than his older brother James.
Which he did.
He really did. Franklin really felt like he was stifled by the strict control and he just wanted to start himself again, write what he wanted to write, do the news that he wanted to news. And so he left at 17. He arrived in Philadelphia, had very little money. But it was pretty darn easy back in the day. If you had any kind of print shop work, you could find work. And that's exactly what he did. He found work and it was, I think, 7 years passed by. And by the time he was 24, he established his own shop. And then from there, it went crazy.
And I just want to point out this. It's kind of interesting because at 17 and just a few years after, he had already become well acquainted with the governor of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And that governor convinced him to go to London to acquire the items necessary to start up his businesses here in the United States.
Which was one of the very first steps, and it's something that you find in Benjamin Franklin when you read about his life a lot. He was never home.
Never.
Like, ever. He would start these shops, he would become successful, and then he would leave. I mean, near the end of his life, he spent more time in France and England than in his own home country, and he liked it that way. He liked traveling, he liked doing all these things. And so that first time over in England really kind of
opened his eyes.
Yeah. And at the time, a lot of people kind of forget this, but at the time, he found England to be homey. I mean, he was an English citizen. He was under the British monarch. He felt like he was an English citizen. He had great pride in being an English citizen. And everything that he did in his early life was kind of to promote this new and burgeoning middle class that was arriving on the scene. A lot of merchants that were making a lot of money, a lot of people that were kind of the self-made, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get the money done. And he felt it.
Yeah. And the other thing is people also forget that 1725, around that area, England was prospering because the Hanovers, the group of kings from George to George, I think, or actually Victoria was the last Hanover. They were very prosperous. They were bringing in a lot of wealth. Here's where the Empire of Britain is really taking off, is at this point. And so going over there was probably a lot of things to see because people were bringing things into London and things were going out. And so there was cultural, just everything that he wanted to see, he probably saw in London at the time. And so
this is also where Benjamin Franklin starts to have a little bit of he starts to show his colors when it comes to the ladies.
A wandering eye, as they say.
He was a bit of a flirt. When he first arrived in Pennsylvania, he met a lady by the name of Deborah Reed.
Deborah!
Which later would become Deborah Reed Franklin, though I found out as I was reading through it, they never actually were married.
Yeah.
There was a common law marriage.
She was married before.
Yeah, they had met and Benjamin Franklin had left. She was forced to get married, and the guy that she was married to ran off with everything, basically.
John Rogers was his name. Yep.
And
she knows how to choose him. That was horrible.
And so because of the law at the time and no divorce ever occurred, she could not remarry again.
She is also the first kind of time that we see Benjamin Franklin run into the Quakers. And a lot of people are under the impression that Benjamin Franklin was a Quaker. He was not. He was actually a Congregationalist and a pretty ardent Calvinist in this early part of his life. But his common law wife's family was very prominent Quakers in the Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So, and you can kind of see that influence later in his life when we talk, when he starts talking about like the morals of frugality and.
Yeah. And you think Quakers are pacifists, and his main thing was diplomatic relationships and stuff. So.
So let's see. Let's talk about.
We haven't talked about his almanac, where he came out with a lot of the first witty things and other.
Tell us about the almanac, Jake.
I have no idea. That's why I wanted you guys to talk about
it. Richard's almanac,
Jacob.
But I mean, that's where. Well, here I'll give about as much as I know. So he was in Philadelphia.
He was,
and that's all I know. Just kidding. During this time is when he started an almanac, which kind of was a little booklet filled with a lot of proverbs. Some of the proverbs we even use today are from this. One of them being like a penny.
Saved is a penny earned.
The fish and visitor stink in 3 days.
Early to bed and early to rise makes man healthy, wealthy and wise.
So I just like the name of this. Poor Richard's Almanac.
Yeah, and as Danny mentioned earlier, this was one of his pet names.
Yep.
And this was a little bit later. This was, in his 20s or 30s.
Yeah, 1732 was when he first did it. So he was in his late 20s.
But
so is this when he came back to Philadelphia?
Yeah, it was when he came back, and he had already started living with Deborah, and he already had a son. So William was already born by this time. Which William was born, nobody knows who William's mom is.
Nope.
So William was his firstborn son, born out of wedlock.
and he was recognized, or how what's the phrase?
Yeah, no, recognize is a good way of putting it. So Ben Franklin took him in and officially recognized him as part of his family, and so he could have all the rights of a firstborn child as if it was done inside the church.
Yep.
So, but his entire life, William desperately wanted his father to tell him who his mother was, and he never did.
Dun, dun, dun.
And so it's still up in the air.
So, Jake, going back to that almanac, it was actually one of the most popular prints of the time, publishing up to 10,000 copies per year.
It made him rich.
Which is unheard of at that time. Like, maybe newspapers came close, but it was a very popular thing because that's what people read. You read about the weather, you read about hints, puzzles, and other amusements, and these random poetry things that Benjamin Franklin wrote in. So
he also used it just to be a jerk.
Well, it kind of makes me laugh because it's like, oh, here he is. He's being a financial guru, and he's also trying to tell people, I don't want you around my house anymore. You've been there for too long, and you stink.
Well, it's not only that. So one of the things that made it popular to begin with was Benjamin Franklin in the almanac had written that one of his competitors, a man by the name of Leeds, was going to die when Mercury was in retrograde, because that was the big thing at the time, and Leeds didn't die, but Benjamin Franklin then published in his newspaper that Leeds died, and then for every single year in the Poor Richard's Almanac, he would reassert that Leeds was dead and to feel bad for his family, and it went on for so long that like people actually started believing it, and Leeds kind of like started like pretty much like having a crisis. Like, so
am I really
so
alive?
imagine, 25 years he published this almanac. So in those 25 years, it was probably 20 years that he was telling Leeds that he was dead, which is nuts. Another thing about this almanac is his brother James, who he was apprenticed to, died.
Yeah.
And at this time, Benjamin Franklin was very well off because it was selling quite well. So he sent 500 copies of Poor Richard's Almanac to his brother's widow so she could be financially secure.
So she could sell them. Yeah, because at this time he was also starting to develop his 13 virtues. That was one of the big things that was happening. The 13 virtues.
Say what that is.
So Benjamin Franklin sat down one day, and I don't know exactly like the whole way that it did it, but he decided that he wanted to have a tempered life. This is kind of the influence of the Quakers. And so he sat down and he said, okay, to be a tempered and virtuous life, I'm going to write down virtues that I want to work in. So like, I want to have temperance. I want to avoid overindulging in food and drink. I want to work on my silence. I want to speak only what benefits myself or others. I want to speak sincerely. I want to have resolution. I want to resolve that I'm going to do what I'm going to do and follow through. I'm going to be moderate. I'm going to be industrious. I'm going to have frugality. I'm going to be clean. I'm going to be tranquil. I'm going to have chastity. I'm going to have humility, and I'm going to have justice. And this was kind of his personal credo. Now, you find very quickly that Benjamin Franklin, and he's honest with himself about this, but he doesn't follow his 13 virtues very much.
I say one of them definitely. So.
Yeah, but for the rest of his life, he takes all of these things, these virtues, and he's constantly teaching his family this. He's teaching others about this, and for a while, he does have like a sincere. He has a sincere try to do this. It isn't until like later in life that you start to see kind of the cracks form a little bit with his 13 virtues.
Well, I mean, let's focus on the industrial part, because during the time he's in Pennsylvania, man, he had a ton of things that he
was
started.
the wealthiest in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And so one of the big things about Benjamin Franklin is he hated being idle, but he loved idleness. And what I mean by that is he loved to surround himself with the most intelligent people. He actually called them his junto. Mm-hmm. And he took these groups of people that he saw a future in, and he kind of guided their life. In the Harry Potter, I think it's book 6, where they go and they get Slugworth. the Professor Slugworth that like gathers the kids around him. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. During the
Yes. Okay. So
That has
it's the professor that comes in that wants to have like
he's the potions master.
Yeah,
he has
gathers
the dinner with the
exactly.
The most, yeah.
It's very. I mean, Benjamin Franklin kind of did that for real. Like he saw the future in a lot of people, especially in Pennsylvania, and so he would gather them together, and then he would, with these people, make these schemes. Like he would build a system by which you had a community insurance. So everybody would put in money into this insurance, and if someone's fire or house turned on fire, you had insurance. Like he was one of the very first people who was actually selling what we would consider to be a home insurance, but he did it through an official government act. He was really instrumental in starting the Assembly of Pennsylvania.
So he started the volunteer firefighters.
Exactly, yeah.
He started the first library. He started the University of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just insane when you look at that.
And this is where I want to throw in, the more I learn about Benjamin Franklin, the more I realize that like Plato, Socrates, those people of Greek, Benjamin Franklin was just a modern day version of that.
And he really was. And what's funny is that they recognized it at the time.
Yeah.
You know, when Benjamin Franklin, we're going to jump right into Benjamin Franklin, the scientist, for a minute. So Benjamin Franklin had a very deep and sincere interest in the sciences. He had read a lot of the sciences, and what he wanted from the sciences was practicality. He didn't want theory. He wanted something that I could study, that I could make a difference in the world. And the really big thing is the Franklin lightning rod.
Yep.
That was his kind of bread and butter. And it wasn't just the Franklin lightning rod, but everything to do with electricity. He wrote about it, but he wrote about it in such a practical way that people were able to understand it, and it immediately turned him into a celebrity, like a huge celebrity.
I say. And because of that, all of us know today that Benjamin Franklin had a kite.
Which is funny because so the actual kite experiment happened in 1752, 25 years before he was even involved with anything else.
Yeah.
He was a young man. His son was involved. His son was about, I think, 19 or something like that.
Like 21 or something.
Yeah, he was pretty old. Like Benjamin Franklin, by that time, had already kind of made this huge name for himself in Pennsylvania and the surrounding states. So much so that I think that he was already by that time the royal postmaster, wasn't he?
No, that came closer to when the United States became, but he was inducted into the Royal Society of Science. So as a colony member, which was unheard of, he was inducted into the Royal Academy of Science in England.
I like this. When you're flying a kite in a thunderstorm to prove a point about electricity, is that genius? Or is that just the most elaborate hold my beer moment in scientific history?
And yeah, he was, a lot of times that's what science is, I feel.
When we were raised in elementary school, like for the first few years, you were taught, he held on to the kite, and that's when it happened. The key kept it, but then you find out, he actually tied it to like a bottle.
Yeah,
oh yeah.
Which I found out that like electricity in bottles was actually kind of a common.
It was
phenomenon.
a huge thing. So, and that's actually one of the things that drove him to kind of do it, because there was a Frenchman who was already doing electricity in bottles experiments that he wrote to during this time, and they were very, very close. And later, when he was in France, he was able to actually kind of talk to him. Now, I want to do one quick correction. So, Benjamin Franklin was made the Postmaster General of the United States in 1775, but before that, he was actually the Postmaster of the Colonies, a British title.
Yeah.
And that was in 1737. So that was pretty darn early.
And pretty young. That's
really young.
Really young.
He was 30.
Yeah.
Which
that's crazy.
This is one of those things that's this is where the Benjamin Franklin that you hear about kind of comes into collision, because you always hear that Benjamin Franklin is a self-made man who his big thing was industriousness, and he really was kind of, for all intents and purposes, capitalist in some of his ways. Like you make your own money, you don't live off society. That's at least what he preached. But the Postmaster General appointment that he had for all the way up until I think 1773.
Yeah.
It paid handsomely. He got a lot of money from
rather wealthy.
from England as this Postmaster General. And the irony is that, so he had this Postmaster General. one of the things that him and William had a falling out of was because William wanted the same thing. William wanted to have some kind of title. He wanted something. That's why he became governor of New Jersey. And Benjamin Franklin kind of held it against him because he's like, oh, you need to be industrious. And yet at the same time, he's kind of being hypocritical because
he did the same thing.
Here he is being paid thousands and thousands of pounds for being a postmaster general, which was kind of, at the time, it was a glorified position. He made it into something different. Like, he really worked on making it so when the Canadian provinces started opening up, that there was mail being delivered to Canada and everything like that. So
now there's a few other scientific discoveries. I mean, I think we all pretty much know bifocals.
Bifocals
are one of the major ones. We have the Franklin stove, but one I didn't know, and you might. I'm having a stroke. You might need to look this up. But he helped invent the flexible urinary catheter.
Did he really?
Yeah. Yep.
Can you imagine what was the catheter like before?
I don't know.
So do you
a ramrod?
Here's a little dark. This is where we get a little bit darker with Benjamin Franklin.
Benny.
When he passed away, and they did a archaeological
the basement.
They found human bodies in his basement. Sure. Meaning, and I mean, this was common practice back in the day, but
it's a lot more common than people think.
They think that he was a hired grave robbers. You take dead bodies, bring them in, and you perform experiments to achieve these science.
Back then, that was pretty much what they would probably say. It's the only way for them to actually do the research.
Here's another interesting one.
Because Michelangelo did that, right, too?
Yeah, that's how he found out the muscles and structures for statues.
But he viewed himself as a horrible person because of it.
He helped and really progressed the scientific knowledge of thermodynamics, especially with refrigeration.
He had a very big interest in refrigeration. He would try to figure it out his entire life. He also did hot water heating systems in houses. That was actually one of the original things that the Franklin stove was developed for, is not necessarily to heat the house, but to heat pipes of water that ran through the entire house.
I just feel stupid.
I know.
I listen to all this stuff. It's like, I mean, I have access to be able to look up how to do all this stuff now on the web. Still have no desire.
The other thing that he was also known for is he was very influential in this study of people, meaning demographics.
Yeah,
demographics,
sociology.
Demographics.
Yeah, he was really
just
big
emerging, and he was like, "Hey, let me give it a try," and would do these studies on huge populations.
Yeah, he did one of the first censuses in what became the colonies.
All right, guys, I've decided whenever we get bored, we need to do something very elaborate. Which I guess that's what this ended up being anyway. The podcast was us being bored.
Yeah.
What's something elaborate we can do? Let's go do a census.
But I just want to point out, and this was taught to me by a college professor. Everyone thinks, Benjamin Franklin's recognized because of his political ideology.
Nope.
No, he was a celebrity because
he was a scientist. Yeah.
And his inventions from those scientists.
I mean, at this point, he's probably one of the smartest men.
Yeah.
And he surrounded himself with other smart people.
Very, very smart people. Yeah. And it's one of those, it's funny because in the United States, there is like this prevalent thing. Like, we think of him as a founding father. We don't think of him as a scientist. Like, when he went over to England, people were comparing him to Sir Isaac Newton.
Yeah.
You know, they were comparing him to great and powerful science. And not ironically, he really did kind of leap forward electricity and the study of electricity, what would be considered significantly. And it's not only that, he had interest in germ theory well before there was a germ theory. He was one of the very first people, again, that was talking about, you don't get a cold because it's cold outside. You get a cold because you're breathing bad air from someone.
Yeah. And
it's actually one of the funniest stories between him and John Adams.
Because John Adams was it.
Him and John Adams later in life had to share a room for just an overnight thing when they were going and meeting one of the envoys of the English during the war. And him and John Adams were in a room together. And
Complete opposites.
And they had to share a bed. And
they had to share a bed?
They did. Oh. So Ben was underneath the covers, and John Adams went to go close the window, and Benjamin Franklin said, "No, leave the window open because you have a cold. And John Adams was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you want to be warm. And he's like, no, it's the bad air. Like, you got to get the bad air out. And so John Adams goes and runs back and they sit underneath a blanket, and Ben Franklin starts to just ramble on about his theory about like how colds are done and everything. And John Adams says it was the most boring and exciting night of his life, so much so that he fell asleep halfway in between, woke up, and Ben Franklin was still talking.
I have to admit, I'd probably be the same way.
So,
just a side tangent, I looked this up. Even though the IQ test did not exist during...
I had this pulled up too.
They say that his IQ was probably as high as 180.
Yeah, between 160 and 180.
Good heavens.
Which is around what I think Albert Einstein was around that too.
Yep.
Well, and you can kind of just see it. I mean, as with all very smart people, he had some quirks. One of the quirks was his day bath, his sunlight bath.
Explain this sunlight bath to me.
Well, for a few hours in the morning,
It's a genius idea.
He would open his windows, strip completely naked, and sit in all of his glory in the morning for about an hour and a half.
And do you know what's crazy?
Was that it was inside that he would
Inside.
do it? Okay, because I mean, there's a lot of people who went on the roof and did that too.
But
So
to be clear, like he was doing this not like in his own home, but like he would go and stay at other people's homes and he would do this. And he'd be like, oh, they'd walk in and he'd be like, well, it's just for my health.
And this is what blows my mind is they had no idea about like vitamin C or anything. And that literally probably because he was in an office all day is what kept him living for so long.
Really? I mean, like, because he lasted a good long time. So he's a
I'm going to do this.
big time shopkeeper.
you're just gonna strip naked and go in front of the window.
Yep.
He owned a lot of different homes. He was printing. He always used the print as kind of a weapon towards people. And he was very diplomatic. And what's funny is like you read some of the things, and I'm going to just do a recommendation right now because I've been reading a book about Benjamin Franklin by a guy by the name of Walter Isaacson, who also did an amazing book about Leonardo da Vinci, but it's called Benjamin Franklin and American Life. It is an awesome book. It's a big book, but it like is entertaining all throughout. Anyways, in this book, they talk about Benjamin Franklin being the almost perfect diplomat in most cases, in that he was able to argue points with other diplomats that nowadays we would think is just ridiculous. And this is where we're going to talk a little bit about him as a diplomat. He was kind of the inventor of what's called soft power. Have you guys ever heard of soft power before?
No.
I speak softly but carry a big stick.
Actually, you're not too far away. So soft power is the ability to influence others by attraction and persuasion. So instead of like John Adams, who bless John Adams, we're going to do John Adams sometime. John Adams was a hard man, and he was a my morals are this, and I will not waver. And
I have to share my opinion.
I have to share my opinion, and if anybody tells me otherwise, I'm going to hold it against them for the rest of my life. And Abigail is going to be by my side the entire time, and we're just going to complain about it. Like that's John Adams.
And mess up my son.
And
who was the same way.
And John Adams was not a good diplomat. He really wasn't. He was a failure as a diplomat again and again and again, so much so that the French actually kicked him out. But
even with Benjamin Franklin there.
Yeah,
And
really.
And here's the other thing. John Adams was so bad that he actually made it into Hamilton, the musical, where King George said, John Adams, I know him, that short guy from the United States, because he was recognized as just the dumb idiot from...
He's not... Well, John
He
Adams
was genius, but...
John Adams has a lot of really positive traits. But when you compare him to Benjamin Franklin, who was a master of, for me to be a diplomat, I'm going to go into a country. I'm going to surround myself immediately
with the elite.
With as many people, not even just the elite, but the elite thinkers.
Yeah.
I'm going to surround myself with the elite thinkers immediately. I'm going to build up these relationships with everybody. And then I'm going to drop a hint. And then I'm going to do a gentle push. I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to do these simple things, and you watch it cascade. You know, we talk about him during the American Revolution going over to France and, you know, really convincing the French to come and
save
America
butt.
for all intents and purposes.
Well, wasn't he, going back a little bit, wasn't he an intricate part of getting the Stamp Act removed?
He was the person that got the Stamp Act. That's actually what I was going to talk about. Okay. So he had gone over because the Penns of where Pennsylvania gets their name, they were the landowners of this state, were not being very nice. And so he went over to try to argue the fact that, the Penns should be taxed. And they were called, I think, the proprietors or something like that. Mm-hmm. The proprietors should have a tax and everything like that. And he had built this huge kind of this social circle around him because he was already famous. Mm-hmm. When he went over there, that's when he was indicted. Let's try that again. He was introduced into the Royal Scientific Society. He was winning awards. But he built this huge relationship tree when he was over in England. And he was over there for a long time.
For most intensive purposes, I would say probably a third of his life was in Europe.
About 15 years in England alone, where he represented Pennsylvania, and then he represented the colonies. And the colonies sent him over specifically because they said, hey, the Stamp Act is killing us. And it was. The Stamp Act was murdering us.
Just so people are aware, the Stamp Act is a special stamp tax that was done for various paper goods, legal documents, newspapers, and playing cards, which is probably pretty important to Benjamin Franklin because that was kind of his baby.
He was Postmaster General for the colonies.
He was 100%.
And so
owned a printing press, was trying to get paper money printed. I mean, he had so many different. He had his hand in everything. But they say, and I actually, in the book that I'm reading, they actually go over, he went in front of Parliament and argued against the Stamp Act and got it overturned.
Well, and there was, I can't remember, there was a quote of someone who was there who said it was like a master teaching little students.
Yeah.
Because that's how it was perceived.
Parliament at the time, the huge thing for the revolution was representation or whatever it was without
taxation without representation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You think Benjamin Franklin, who he had to have some weight, as in political weight, to be able to persuade Parliament to overturn that. That didn't happen.
Well, and what we don't talk about is that during the time Benjamin Franklin was also building what became the Whig Party of Great Britain, which was the ones who, I don't want to say supported the United States, but had a vested interest in the colony's success. And Benjamin Franklin, when he argued the Stamp Act, he was a British citizen. He had just gone to the coronation. He loved the English system. Mm-hmm. He loved the king. And he wasn't arguing to be independent. As a matter of fact, Benjamin Franklin, of all of the founding fathers, was incredibly late to the independent mindset. It wasn't until 1775, after what's called the cockpit, that he really kind of changed his mind about the United States being an independent nation. But you think about this. England was suffering. They needed money. They were just coming off of the
French Indian Wars.
The French Indian Wars over here, and the 7 year war over in Europe. And they were desperate for money. And so to them, the Stamp Act made sense. Yeah, here's our people that are over there, and they are doing most of the production. They didn't have manufacturing yet. Manufacturing was in England, but they were producing everything. They should have to pay a little bit of this. And Benjamin Franklin was able to say, no.
You're wrong.
Let's remove the stamps. Let's get this down. And let's just limit it to T's. I think was one of them. The T Act was what he kind of argued it down to. So,
and
which ended up, causing issues later too. Yeah. So,
but it went with his temperance. They could have done whiskey. There was whiskey with that, but limiting it to tea, it kind of went along with his 13 principles that he followed.
Now, during this entire time when he's over in England, his wife is not with him.
Isn't that funny? And then, wasn't this the time where he just kept writing letters saying, "I'll be another month"?
Yes, exactly. He kept, but they're very paternal. It was almost like they were living kind of a.
They were roommates.
Yeah, they didn't. It was more like, "Oh, I admire you. You are my admiration."
And one of the reasons or speculations is that she didn't want their son inoculated against some diseases in the sense of being introduced in a controlled environment. And that was the result of that child dying.
Yep.
And Benjamin Franklin
kind of held it
that
against
grudge.
her. The other thing is it's suspected that she was agoraphobic.
Yep. She didn't like the sea.
When she
Isn't that so funny?
When
She's
she-
the exact opposite.
when she kind of wrote, and especially when a little later, and we won't go into it, but they bought a house and yada yada yada. But she talks about just never leaving the home. That she's completely content cleaning the home and writing letters. And so here,
Sounds like my kind of life.
Benjamin Franklin is over in England, and he's hobnobbing with these great scientists. He's going on vacations all the time
To like wealthy areas.
Yeah, he would go up to Scotland and talk to the Scottish Enlightenment people, and he would spend weeks with them, and they'd wander around and they'd chat with each other, and they loved each other, and let's write letters to each other. And he would find a couple girls, and he's like, "Hey, you should join the cadre," and yada yada yada. I mean, he was just all over the place, and he really did. He's like, "Hey, I'll come home eventually. Yeah, I'll come home eventually," and he did.
He did.
He came home once. He was over there for a little while and then went right back to England.
And I'll point this out. She died before the main events of the United States becoming an independent country.
Well,
she died in 1774, I think is what it said.
And he was in England.
And he was in England. But at the same time, and this sounds horrible, that opened the door for him to not really have to worry about it, even though he didn't worry about it at all.
Did not worry about
Especially later on when he got in France. Ooh la la.
He did. Like, even in England,
Oui,
like
oui.
he had a surrogate. He calls them their surrogate family. He had kind of like a wife over in England that he lived with.
Yeah, and he probably had a lot of illegitimate children.
He had a couple. I mean, William we know about.
Yeah.
And they think there's probably a few more that are out there.
He had a daughter too.
Sally.
And she was the actual.
She was legitimate.
Yeah.
She was legitimate. She was between her and or him and his wife.
Yeah, so
But see, here's the thing. His family, the family life of Benjamin Franklin is just about the oddest thing. So his son came over to England with him, slept around, had a child. Had
His
an
son
illegitimate, had an illegitimate child.
who was also named William.
Yep. No,
Was he not?
he was named Temple.
Oh, William Temple Franklin.
Yeah. And then his son moved away, left his son in England. Benjamin Franklin kind of set him up so he could live in England while Benjamin Franklin was over there. His son goes back to the United States, becomes legitimized, becomes the mayor of, or the governor of New Jersey under the royal crown, not with the American independence, but as a royal governor. And so Benjamin Franklin sleeping around all over the place. In the meantime, he's taking care of his illegitimate grandson, Temple. He won't come back to America for his son's wedding. He won't come back to America for his daughter's wedding. He won't come back to America for his daughter's children that are born. He won't come back when his wife had a stroke. He won't come back. Like he just stays over in England. It's almost like, it sounds bad, but I don't think Benjamin Franklin really saw family as important.
Yeah. And so much so, they didn't see Benjamin Franklin's stuff good because all of his posterity living are in Europe. So Temple ended up moving back
was
to
in
Europe.
France. One of his grandsons, Benji, ended up over here.
Yeah, but the rest of them stayed over in Europe. And so a lot of the Franklins who are related to Benjamin Franklin are actually European.
Yeah, but there's no Franklin anymore.
No.
Yeah, so all of his legitimized grandchildren that actually survived until adulthood and had children, all were his daughters had children, and obviously they don't carry the Franklin name. So, it's crazy. So anyways, so here we are. Benjamin Franklin just argued the Stamps Act. A huge person over in England, just the most famous individual ever, and was so excited to be over there that he stayed there forever and ever, even though his family was kind of falling apart over here. Eventually, there is a huge problem that rises. The Boston Tea Party happens.
The Boston Massacre.
The Boston Massacre happens.
Mhm.
And in both regards, both the Boston Tea Party and the Boston Massacre, Benjamin Franklin sides with the Royalists. He sides with England. He actually talks about that it would be improper that the people who poured the tea down into the river have robbed people of their livelihood. He was actually pretty ticked about it.
Yeah.
Well, after fighting for it for so long.
Yeah,
probably.
Benjamin Franklin was really good pals with King George. They had a very good association.
They had an association. Really good, I don't know, but like he knew him. He knew him well.
And respected him.
As did everybody, yeah. But Benjamin Franklin in 1774 was brought forward to a place that was known as the Cockpit. It's in Whitehall Palace, or was in Whitehall Palace. And there was a solicitor general who brought Franklin forward and just kind of eviscerated him in front of the Privy Council, which is kind of it's a select group of the king's advisors. Think of it kind of as like the president's cabinet, exactly. And just rakes Franklin over the coals because of some letters that were written and some other things. But Franklin does nothing. He sits there stoically. He doesn't respond. He doesn't do anything. But later he says that was the moment that he knew that he could not be a member of the British society and therefore not a Briton and therefore an American. And he goes back to the United States. After that, 1774, mind you, this is after his wife has died. This is after his son has become governor. This is after he takes his illegitimate grandson, who by this time I think was like 14.
Yeah.
They sail back to the United States, and Benjamin Franklin, bells are ringing when he arrives. He's taken in a cart, and he's taken directly to
Continental Congress.
The Continental Congress, where he becomes kind of their elder statesman. And what's funny is like during the Continental Congress, like the notes are, Benjamin Franklin doesn't say a lot, but when he says something, it means a lot.
They all listen.
Yeah, he was kind of a behind the scenes guy. He kind of was doing the same thing as he was as a diplomat, where
he was. Instead
of going up and doing these huge speeches, he would become associates with the people and give them ideas.
And it's crazy. He really was. Like he was
65.
Yeah, he was up there.
He was old, and he even said, like, "Oh, I'm going to die anytime." He would always tell people, "I'm on death's door," because he did have a lot of ailments. He had kidney stones, he had gout, he had all sorts of pretty terrible things that were happening to him. But he served on numerous committees. He was part of the very first people, the admiralty, or the admiral and the general that were originally sent over from England. He had a relationship with in England. They were Admiral Howell. Admiral Howell. Howe.
Mm-hmm.
So Benjamin Franklin and Admiral Howe, before the revolution even was taking place, before the Declaration, before even we would consider the start of the revolution, had met together and said, we need to figure this out. How are we going to prevent the colonies from splitting from England? And they desperately tried, and they tried a couple different times. So Benjamin Franklin and what became the admiral who came to the United States to fight the colonists before had tried to figure out how to not have it happen. Admiral Howe, by the way, if anybody also wants to read a very interesting biography about Admiral Howe, there is an Admiral Howe biography that is called, let's see, I think it's How the First Earl or something like that. Anyways, he comes to the United States. He sets up the blockade of Boston, and he realizes that this isn't a good idea. And he goes back to England and says, I'm done. I'm not going to do anything more. So he really is kind of, and his life is one of an incredible, amazing admiral who does these amazing things, but is also one of like temperance and kind of Benjamin Franklin's equal in a lot of different ways. Anyways, a side tangent. And so
Danny gets excited.
I do. I love this stuff. So Benjamin Franklin, here he is.
Yep.
He is in Continental Congress. One of the committees that he serves on is the committee to draft a letter of a declaration. Now, at the time, there was still some infighting on whether or not that we should be splitting off.
Yeah.
Because the revolution was actually started only to say, hey, we want representation. And the representation that they wanted wasn't even necessarily sending someone over to Parliament, but it was establishing a parliamentary system here that was equal in power to the Parliament over in England, and would have a prime minister that would report directly to the crown. It's very similar to what Canada has, Australia has right now. So
that's exactly what they were shooting for.
But more and more, Thomas Paine, Alexander Hamilton, a lot of these names that everybody knows about are talking more and more about, no, we need a definitive split. So they write the Declaration of Independence.
Except for Benjamin Franklin gets gout.
He does get gout during this time. He's still involved with it a lot, but he gets gout. They don't ask Benjamin Franklin, which kind of miffs him a little bit. Because he's like, I could write it. There's no problem. And John Adams is the same way. John Adams is a brilliant writer. They don't ask John Adams. They ask Thomas Jefferson for some good reasons. He was a Virginian. They felt like it needed to come from a Virginian who had a kind of an upper crust. He was an excellent writer. He was pretty flowery. He writes the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, hands it around, and everybody makes small edits.
Which he hated.
And he did. But Benjamin Franklin was just kind of like, get over it. I think his exact words were, this is a document in which all of our hands shall be, and this is the document by which we shall be executed, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's really kind of private. But one of the things that he changes, which ends up being one of the most profound changes, is what, Josh? Go.
I have no idea.
These truths are self-evident?
All men are created equal? No. Hold on. I have it written down. I'm going to do it. I don't want to misquote the Declaration of Independence. So, Thomas Jefferson had written at the time that we hold these truths to be sacred and undeniable.
Oh, that's right.
And in this moment, Benjamin Franklin took it, crossed it out, and just put self-evident.
Jake wins.
Jake
well
wins.
done, Jake.
And that's because he wanted to take out he didn't want basically the United States to be religious centered.
Yeah, well, Benjamin Franklin was a determinist.
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin was a deist, so he believed in God, but not necessarily the
active God.
The active God or the miracle God. He believed in the passive God and the enlightened God. But that's the other reason that he did it is the sacred and undeniable makes it seem like it is an outside source.
Yeah.
That our independence, these truths that we are holding in place, is coming from an outside source. And what he wanted it to be was, no, these truths exist within each person, and therefore they are self-evident. And still to this day, it is probably one of the most profound statements of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
It made it so that the revolutionists weren't fighting for someone, they were fighting for themselves at that point. One of my favorite things is when they ended up signing the Declaration of Independence, our good friend John Hancock basically said, hey, we're all going to hang together when we sign. And Benjamin Franklin said, yes, we must indeed all hang together, or most assuredly we'll hang separately. And so it's interesting that he was like, yeah, we're going to die. Like, it's just a fact.
Well, at this point, he's like, I'm going to die any day anyway.
It's like, I'm 68 years old. Get over it. So Benjamin Franklin signs the Declaration of Independence. And not only that, he is a huge part of kind of the initial plans. He was friends with George Washington. We didn't even get to that. But he had known George Washington from back in the day and was one of the ones to suggest George Washington be in charge of the Continental Army. They send Benjamin Franklin over to France to try to buoy support. Now, the way that Benjamin Franklin does it is he goes and he does exactly what he did in England. He gathers a bunch of people around him who he knows that kind of hero worship him, and he starts to just kind of lightly send out letters, and it drove John Adams nuts. Because John Adams, number one, didn't even like the idea that France was involved. He thought that bringing France in was muddying up the independence of the United States because we were asking one monarchy over the other monarchy. But Benjamin Franklin saw it as a boon, and he used every wile, guile tool in his tool belt, including sleeping around, writing erotic letters to people, standing naked in doorways, whatever.
Yep.
But each one of these things was ironically carefully politically planned, because in France, they saw the kind of determination of John Adams as ridiculous. And what they saw in Benjamin Franklin was a peer. This is during the time of Versailles. So, where everything is like big and huge and wonderful. And they see Benjamin Franklin as, he's one of us.
Uh-huh.
He understands the France. He's not studying the French language at night by reading the Bible. He's studying it with the whores down in Paris.
Yeah.
And that's legitimately how he learned the language. And so he gets the support from France. And it's a huge amount of support.
Sends one of their top generals, Lafayette,
Yep.
to basically bring the American revolutionaries out of extinction.
And bring an end to the Revolutionary War. Now, we think of the end of the Revolutionary War as happening at Yorktown. Mm-hmm. But the reality is the Revolutionary War did not end until the Treaty of Paris was signed. And that was Benjamin Franklin.
That was all Benjamin Franklin.
Now, what's interesting is I was reading over Benjamin Franklin. The way that he did it is he submitted 4 have-tos and 4 wants. Of the have-tos was there has to be a declaration of true independence that you recognize us as an independent nation, and we have to have sovereign control. But some of the wants that he didn't end up getting is he wanted Canada bad. Like really, really bad.
Well, he maybe be a supporter of our current president.
But he didn't get it. He didn't get Canada, obviously. But the other thing is England wanted the Americas to pay reparations to some of the lords and some of the people who lost their lands, right? Benjamin Franklin is vehemently against this.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is that he believes that all loyalists in any capacity are evil, wicked, and despisable creatures, I think is what he called them. Literally the number one loyalist in the United States at the time was his son.
Mm-hmm.
And he hated his son. Hated him. Which was kind of sad because really when you read the letters that William wrote, William really wanted his dad to recognize him as being a legitimate person, and Ben Franklin just never did. He always had advice that he wanted to give, but he never did.
Yeah.
So Benjamin Franklin is the only founding father that signed Declaration of Independence, the Treaty of Paris, which ended the Revolutionary War for real, and the Constitution.
Yep.
And then he died.
He did right after the Constitution was.
To say the Constitution, he was 81.
Yep.
Here's the other thing that many people don't know is even though he was in France, he was the president of Pennsylvania at the time when the Articles of Confederation. So he was president of Pennsylvania in France.
President of the Assembly of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So at that time, the confederations, each state basically had its own government. And he was the president of Pennsylvania.
Well, what's interesting too is, we talked that he was a slave owner before, but in those last years, probably due to the influence of France, England, and the Quakers and stuff, he was a very
big
passionate abolitionist.
Huge abolitionist.
Wrote essays and everything about getting rid of slavery.
And was a penitent abolitionist. So he recognized that because he did own slaves.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to be very clear on is Benjamin Franklin, when he was going back and forth in England, he wasn't going alone. He was going with a cadre of slaves, at least 2 or 3 of them. And yet in the end of his life, when he became, I think he was president of some society, wasn't he? Of an abolitionist society or something. He was
the president of an abolitionist thing.
Someone look it up and see what it is.
I can't, it doesn't have it on my thing.
Anyways, he recognized and wrote that it was wrong, which is Benjamin Franklin was not the most humble of people. He knew he was smart and he liked to show off, but to recognize and be penitent about you being wrong is it's an amazing thing.
So he helped write the new Constitution for Pennsylvania Society for promoting the abolition of slavery. And he was president of that place until his passing in 1790.
Now, he passed away at the age of 84.
Which is crazy.
And he had over 20,000 people attend his funeral.
Oh, my goodness.
Which, that's nuts.
I can't even imagine. I mean, like, we have stadiums that have about that many seats, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, have you ever read his last great quote?
No. Benjamin
Franklin, one of the last things he did is he wrote a letter, and I'm trying to think to who. It was to a French scientist named Jean-Baptiste Leroy. And the last thing is that he said is, our new Constitution is now established. Everything seems to promise it will be durable. But in this world, nothing is certain except death and taxes. And it is the last thing that he wrote.
Death and taxes.
And I love it.
Exclamation mark. It's quite interesting because during his latter years in France, a young statesman, Thomas Jefferson, showed up, and he basically trained Thomas Jefferson how to be a diplomat in France.
Sure.
And when he came back to the United States, a lot of Thomas Jefferson's political
ideology
was the ideology of
100%. And what's funny is, like, there is obviously, we're in this political schism right now of two sides being very vehemently different. And there was no different back then. Benjamin Franklin was one of those strange creatures that could be both a ardent conservative.
Yeah.
Because, like, fiscally speaking, he was as ardent a conservative as you possibly could get, and yet have very, very liberal views.
Yeah.
I mean, one of his big things was, I believe in frugality, so I am willing you keep your money that you earn up to a point, but beyond that, we tax you. And, like, he had these, like, different views of, like, who should be a representative. And one of his big things is that no representative should be paid.
Yeah.
He thought that you should be
a volunteer.
You should be volunteering your time as an American citizen out of the goodness and virtue of your own heart, knowing that you're making a difference, and you think about how different that is than our system now. So
it was kind of interesting that, I mean, like, they describe him as the calming, unifying voice of wisdom.
Yeah.
And it's something that, I mean, like, I think we all really want.
Where's our Benjamin Franklin?
Yeah.
I need an elder statesman to come around with glasses that makes funny quips, who's a super scientist.
Yeah.
Who's able to just bring everybody together.
Who, his bed count is higher than everything, and you're like, what the heck, guy?
It's funny because
you're not that good looking.
In Walter Isaacson's book, Walter Isaacson actually makes I'm going to say, like, an argument that Benjamin Franklin might not have bedded that many women. It was probably he was just the biggest flirt ever.
That's true,
and he flirted with everybody. So. Maybe I don't know. I'm
maybe
leaving
he was
it
just
to
a
judgment.
little flamboyant.
Maybe he was just an old man that was just,
he was like,
it was a little flirty.
But it is interesting to know that, like, he established and was an advisor to pretty much every founding father, including George Washington.
Yep.
And after everything was established and settled, because George Washington had been president for a year or two, that's when he was like, okay, I'm out. Peace.
And he really did. I mean, he luckily Benjamin Franklin.
Make America. I'm going to France.
Well, and Benjamin Franklin didn't live to see some of the heartache that kind of our early country went through. There's a lot of hiccups that we kind of learned along the way when John Adams was president, when Thomas Jefferson was president, when Madison was president, that Benjamin Franklin could have almost easily overcome. The XYZ affair, which is one of John Adams' big things, where we darn well almost went to war with France.
Articles of Federation.
Yeah, the Articles of Federation, these kind of hiccups, you look and go, oh, if Benjamin Franklin was there, this would never be a problem.
Yeah, it's almost And this is my religious side coming. It's almost like he was removed so America could grow into what it is.
Yeah, it really kind of feels like that a little bit. That Benjamin Franklin was put in place as this dominant force to be able to push things through. Because, I mean, every single step
he was there.
From the beginning of what our country was as a British colony, almost all the way through to, all the way through, all the way until we were established in the United States, Benjamin Franklin's hand was in every single step. Every step. I mean, from the very beginning. So,
and do you know what I love? This is the other thing. Yes, he was Postmaster General for the United States, but when the Constitution was formed and the actual government of the United States existed, he held no office. So if you look at government nowadays, he never held a position in the United States government.
Did not.
He was tired.
He was tired.
He was.
And set up everything to let other people take care of it, basically. So yes, was he a womanizer? Yes. But he was also awesome.
Well, we're going to end on a couple of my favorite Benjamin Franklin quotes. I know Jake might have a few.
I don't know if I have any more.
Well, these are some of my one. A countryman between two lawyers is like a fish between two cats. A slip of the foot you may soon recover, but a slip of the tongue you may never get over. He that drinks fast pays slow. And then God heals and the doctor takes the fees. And then clean your finger before you point out spots. Benjamin Franklin, a legitimate hero of mine. I will say, like, for all his faults, and he had many. And we didn't go over all of them, but we went over some of them. For all of the faults that Benjamin Franklin had, he really was the powerhouse that our country needed to kind of gain itself. And I just wish we had a Ben Franklin now.
Honestly.
Okay, final words, gentlemen.
Final words.
Joshua.
Benjamin Franklin really is, he's incredible. I went and visited Pennsylvania, and they are a step away from worshiping the man. I mean, there's statues of him everywhere. His streets are named after him. Everything's named after him. And for good reason. He really did establish and help establish the country we live in today. And of course, like we were saying, there's contradictions here and there and battles that are being fought where we wish we had a Benjamin Franklin. But, you know, it's incredible that one man can have such an impact of an experiment that's turned out to be one of the greatest countries on earth.
Exactly. Jake, final words from you.
I like this. Well, there's a few quotes here. In order for 3 people to keep a secret, 2 must be dead. Wine is a constant proof that God loves us and loves us happy. And this one's my favorite. Trouble knocked at the door, but hearing laughter turned away.
Oh, see, I love it.
That's what we're seeking to do. Cause laughter, mostly at the antics and misquotes and misinformation that we constantly want to spread to everyone.
Yeah. Well, we are back, everyone, so expect a podcast from us next week. It is the paranormal.
Oh, crap, is that me?
And I think, Jacob, it is you.
That is you.
Oh, no.
Jake's doing the paranormal next week.
Let's talk about the growth I have on my foot.
That's paranormal.
That is paranormal.
I don't have a growth on my foot, everyone. I'm sorry. He has a growth on his foot.
As always, be on the lookout for all of us. We are on anywhere that you enjoy your podcast, be it Spotify, be it Apple Podcasts, be it YouTube, be it any number of different apps that are out there.
What was that? Any apps that you're
Any number of apps.
Voice broke.
Remember that.
Next week, we're talking about puberty.
Paranormal. Paranormal puberty.
How does a man who's nearly 40 not gone through puberty yet? That's the paranormal.
Hey, our voice is so high, we're hoping second puberty hits us at some point.
Seriously.
It doesn't.
Oh, now I'm
And
sad.
that's
And
paranormal.
with that, thank you for joining us at Twaddling Along.
Do you think Benjamin Franklin had a high voice?